Being out there, it's for here. Part of the things, nada. A lot of special things. Maybe sometimes on YouTube for the videos. Good that you're not doing that.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, family members, Superintendent Adios, our guests, and those joining us online. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So it's now 5:45, and I will now call this regular board meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and for all. We now have the agenda before us. If there aren't any changes, I would entertain a motion. What about the agenda?
I move the motion to adopt the agenda as it was presented.
Do I have a second?
Second motion.
Any discussion about the agenda? So all in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please say aye. Aye. So motion carries with a 5-0 vote. We now have an agenda. So next item is staff, students, and school recognitions, and it looks like today we have with Mr. Byers, if you would like to go ahead and start with the first item, which is the teaching and learning department.
We have two departments running as tonight, celebrate and recognize a couple of the staff members, teaching and learning and student services. And so I'm going to invite Director Chapman and Director Christie to come present and recognize their staff.
I'll go first. So a couple of years ago, we, I don't know if you remember, we went through the whole SIA needs assessment, and we identified that we wanted to add social workers to our system. So we added a couple social worker programs through or positions through the SIA. And tonight I want to recognize one of those social workers, Chris, please. I'm going to read this so I don't forget anything important. But first off, I want to say that all of our social workers are amazing, but I especially wanted to recognize Chris. He has been working mainly at the elementary level. He's been a great addition to our multi-tiered system of support for students. He works with students on a one-to-one basis in all 4 of our elementary schools who are needing extra support to gain coping skills and find hope. That's his motto. He's here to help students find hope. And some days he does that for me too. So I really appreciate him. He has a license in solution-focused brief therapy, and he uses those skills to help students find their own solutions and create their own opportunities. He does it all with humility and grace. And we're so happy to recognize him tonight as an outstanding member of our Woodburn School District team. There was recently an article written on him, so I brought it for you guys to read.
Anybody start mine?
Okay. So I am recognizing our new teacher mentors tonight. So I have a little something to read about each of them. So first for Serge Lopez. Serge is the new teacher mentor and has been in the Woodburn School District for 19 of his 22 years as an educator, and he's taught grades 2 through 5 in the district. When asked what he's most proud of, he said his contributions to several important committees over the past 2 decades. For example, he was a part of the dual language committees that helped establish our programs at Washington Elementary, where he was a teacher. And he continues to seek out knowledge and best practices in that subject. And he's also proud of the hard work he and his mentor colleagues have contributed to making the Woodburn School District mentor program as effective as possible. When asked about the challenges he faces, Serge pointed out that differentiating for teachers and earning their trust can be challenging. I collected a couple of quotes from teachers about Serge, and in these quotes, it's evident that Serge is up to the challenge of differentiating for teachers and earning their trust. So Brianna Frasco shared that it has been a blessing to spend my first year as a teacher with him as my mentor. Serge is always willing to lend a hand and is so responsive to any questions I have. He has helped expand my thinking, inspire me, and provide me with any tools and the confidence I need to reach my full potential. As a new teacher, any new teacher is lucky to be working with him. Thank you for your dedication and hard work, Mr. Lopez. And Ana Gavina shared that Mr. Lopez is always ready to help when I need help. Even at the moment when my students are confused about what I had just explained. I would always say, Maestro, do you have any other example? He would be ready to give my students another example. He is full of helpful resources and shares different strategies for supporting students' emotional and academic learning. I'm thankful for Mr. Lopez. Gracias, Maestro Lopez, for all of your support. So Serge's support for the dual language programs and new teachers is invaluable to the district. We're fortunate to have his expertise and experience as a new teacher mentor and as a part of the Department of Teaching and Learning. So please join me in celebrating new teacher mentor Serge Lopez. And I would like to recognize our other new teacher mentor tonight as well, Dr. Marilyn McCauley. So Marilyn is in her 7th year as a new teacher mentor and was a classroom teacher for 17 years. She's in her 14th year in Woodburn and has been a teacher, instructional coach, and a new teacher mentor. When asked to share something she loves about mentoring, Marilyn shared that it brings her a great deal of pride when she gets to work with a new teacher that she taught as a student. She loves it when they return to Woodburn to serve their community. And it's even better to see those teachers move into leadership positions within our district. When asked what's challenging as a new teacher mentor, Marilyn said, overwhelmed that some teachers feel when they enter the classroom without the strategies for strong classroom management and struggle to manage the classroom. Marilyn is skilled at easing the overwhelmed new teachers feel and she has a deep toolbox of strategies to share with the teachers as they embark on their careers as an educator. So I have a couple of quotes as well from teachers that Marilyn has worked with to demonstrate how she supports new teachers. Tyler Niebecker said, Marilyn is an awesome person. She's willing to go above and beyond when helping new teachers. Our conversations during prep are always productive. And Melanie Truck said that Marilyn is an excellent mentor. As a profession, teaching is full of highs and lows. Marilyn has the incredible ability to help new teachers celebrate the highs and problem solve their way out of the lows. Teaching 8th grade language arts is a unique challenge, but it is also work filled with so much joy. Whenever Marilyn observes my classes, she has a smile on her face and is not afraid to remind me how lucky I am. She's been there for me through it all, and no matter what my issues, I know Marilyn will be there for me, ready to give me a touch. So Marilyn brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table and is always willing to step in and help our new teachers with anything they need. We're fortunate to have Marilyn on our team, so please join me in celebrating Dr. Marilyn.
All of you join the meeting.
Alright, here we go, ready? 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
I would be front center with everybody else.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Felicidades, congratulations.
We got the,
It's a nine.
right?
And next, we're moving on to agenda item number 3, which is public comment, and I'd like to invite Misha Luger.
Everyone, my name is Nisha Flicker. I am a social studies teacher at Success Alternative School, what's like directly behind you. I'm also the vice president of the Woodburn Education Association. So I've had the privilege of working at Success for 4 years, helping students who struggle at the main high school academically, socially, or emotionally. And I've always taken pride in working at Success with our wonderful team of teachers who prioritize student well-being, safety, equity, and comfort. We are always hearing from students that they could never dream of doing well at school until they gain the success. And we as a staff has always taken pride in that. In the recent years, we've slowly seen changes to our school, some for the better, some for the worse. One change that took the attention of all of our staff and students at Success was the loss of a full-time social worker. As you can imagine, we serve some of the most vulnerable students in the entire district. Many of our students are homeless, have unstable housing situations. Some come from a history of drug use or have histories with the justice system. Some have had very difficult family situations. Up until last year, we always housed a full-time social worker in our building who was easily accessible to our students and frequently checked in on them and helped them with what they needed. Since last year, we've only received a social worker 1 day a week. Some students have noticed this change and asked why, and I don't have an answer for them. I'm here to ask for the consideration of our building and our students. We have a wonderful group of young people who have every right to a chance at succeeding in life. However, year by year, the supports of Success, which have helped them succeed, have been stripped away. 4 years ago, we had 5 classroom teachers, a full-time social worker, and an additional 6 classroom teachers who helped with career and college work, as well as did some classroom intervention. Now we are simply down to 5 classroom teachers and no secondary support staff. We have some of the most vulnerable students in the district, many of whom love Success, but say that they feel like afterthoughts compared to the high school. Many choices have been made at the high school in order to address concerns around equity. I ask that Success be considered in the decision-making process and to consider supporting some of the most vulnerable students in the district as we once did. Thank you.
And next, I'd like to invite Tony Song.
Good evening. I'm Tony Song, president of the Woodburn Education Association. I'm a 5th grade bilingual teacher at Heritage Elementary. Good evening. We are in a crisis. Educators are being stressed to the breaking point, and students in many cases are simply being turned off to school. There's a connection here. In short, teachers are being treated as accountants instead of teachers, reduced to spending their non-instructional time analyzing so-called data from standardized tests instead of working together as they once did in the past to plan meaningful lessons that engage and inspire students. As a result, educators, especially highly skilled bilingual teachers and specialists, continue to leave Woodburn School District at an alarming rate. Also, as a result, we struggle to find solutions to low student attendance without asking these fundamental questions. What happened to the joy of learning? What happened to the nurturing of student creativity and imagination? What happened to our stated objective to inspire? We made it abundantly clear during bargaining that educators, especially in the post-pandemic era environment, require more time to prepare. Fortunately, our new contract provided for an additional 30 minutes per week. Yet what we see today seems like an attempt to oblige us to use every spare minute for meetings about data, most of which bear little relevance to our instruction. Due to this, many of us must bring work home with us, come in early, stay late, or come to work on weekends. For a decade or more, our district has framed its emphasis on data and educator data teams as a solution for lagging student achievement. It's long past time to ask, what do we have to show for it? What data is there to demonstrate that this has been a useful idea that's achieved any of its goals? On top of all this, exactly how many taxpayer dollars are we paying NWBA, a private corporation, in order to have the right to administer their tests to all of our students 3 times a year. Finally, what have been the consequences of obligating groups of teachers to spend countless hours punching numbers and determining growth rates as determined by standardized tests, instead of actually planning lessons together and focusing on instruction? One of those consequences is that school has become less engaging, less inspiring, and in short, less fun for students. Instead of becoming involved in that kind of project-based learning that was done years ago, today we have students, many of whom are in poverty, following a scripted curriculum designed to correlate with the recognizably middle-class language of standardized tests. And we wonder why attendance is down. It's time for the district administration to seize the temptation to micromanage every minute of educators' school days to such a point that their potential for creative instruction is sucked dry. We're professionals trained to tailor our instruction to the unique needs and dreams of each individual student. These are schools, not factories. We serve human beings. We don't distribute standardized products. So if we can get back to the idea of valuing both our educators and our students as unique and creative human beings, cannot be mass produced, we will have come a long way back toward the sort of engaging and inspiring that this district has always claimed to have valued. Thank you.
Thank you everyone who participated in our public comment today. The next item on our agenda is board reports. So this is a time to share how we as board members are moving the mission of our school district forward. And if anybody would like to go ahead and start. It's open to.
I can start as a last regular board meeting. I've gone to 3 separate parent nights, 2 at everyone at Washington Elementary. It's really nice to be able to talk to educators who are doing the job every day, working with our students in our communities, and see what's different, what our building administrators are doing different year over year, and seeing new faces, familiar faces, fresh faces. It's exciting to have the school year kick off.
Well, I haven't contributed as much as well, I mean, at all, since our last meeting. The only time I did something, it was a retreat with that board. And then I got ill. So I'm barely coming back from my illness, so. Thank you. Board retreat.
I've been able to, as far as scheduling wise, with work. I've been able to attend French Prairie's soccer games, you know, which they're doing really well. First 3 games, 28-0, you know, so they're doing really well. It's great to be able to talk with the youth coaching staff and kind of just to engage, because you know that's a big one for me is community engagement. So I've been going into some of the practices to observe, you know, how the engagement with the staff, the coaching staff, the students, and how they work, and just kind of maybe just hear things here and there, just kind of see how we can connect on a, you know, more personal level. I've also, as today, as a matter of fact, I was able to contribute. You know, I know that they have the bonfire going on tomorrow night, so I was asked to go and get a truckload of pallets. So I went out to Mega Foods and loaded that sucker up and was able to deliver it and meet some staff, which was cool. So yeah, and so pretty excited about that. That's what I've been able to do.
For me, it's I would say it's been busy, right? Everybody's starting school, kids are back in school, and so I had the opportunity to visit a few high school open house, as well as a couple games, such as the volleyball game, the football game. But one of the things that really sticks out to me is visiting one of the middle schools and just, you know, hanging out during passing time and during lunch and had a chance to play horse with one of our students. So we didn't finish, so I'll have to go back and finish that game. But it's, I think, always neat to connect with our students and find out what they're studying. And so moving on, Mr. Arias, the office of the superintendent.
Before we move into the agenda, I wanted just to give an opportunity to invite you to join our work towards creating a culture of gratitude as Central Office administrators. We've been using some postcards when we see something that's celebrated, we want to give thanks and call people out and celebrate what we value and appreciate. So if you're out there visiting schools and you see something that you want to celebrate and call out, we want to pass these around. They're pre-stamped postcards, and you can also join us to create that culture and environment. So we want to create that for our community, a culture of gratitude and appreciation. So tonight we have two reports. I'm going to be inviting a couple of directors to join us in presenting. We've been having some conversation going back to the board retreat, thinking about our strategic plan and what needs to be done to be able to accomplish those objectives. So tonight we're going to be listening to a couple of reports from teaching and learning and student services as we organize ourselves to be able to reach those goals and objectives, taking into consideration some of the board goals around accountability and about data, and what are some of the metrics that we're putting into place to be able to measure ourselves as we implement and work towards accomplishing our objectives from our strategic plan. So first, we invite Director Chapman to join us and hear about the work that the Department of Teaching and Learning is leading on the objectives within our strategic plan goal line.
Hey, good evening, Chair Legaspi and Superintendent Larios and board members. Thank you for inviting me today. So I'll be giving an overview of the work that we're doing in the Department of Teaching and Learning this year and going through some goals that we have as a district and how we're contributing to those goals. And so this is a list of who we are in our department. So we've got the new junior mentors, instructional coaches, we've got tag coordinator, a program coordinator. So we've got a variety of staff in our departments. And then this is an overview of some of the bigger buckets of things that we do in our department. And obviously it's not an exhaustive list, but a list of some of the big things that fall into teaching and learning. So here you have a list of the outcomes that are in goal 1 of the strategic plan, and then also the outcomes from our district integrated plan, which incorporates the high school success plan, the comprehensive schools for improvement plan, Everyday Matters, student investment account. So we have taken all of those large initiatives and put them into one comprehensive plan that we developed as a district, which you had a report on in the spring this past year. And so this is a list of the outcomes from that plan as well. And I've highlighted the outcomes from both of those plans that fall within the purview of teaching and learning. So what I'll do is go through the goals from the strategic plan, and then I'll share the work that's happening in teaching and learning this year that aligns with each of those goals. And so the first outcome within the strategic plan is that each student will demonstrate proficiency in all state academic areas. And this past week, we engaged in a process with the Department of Education to set goals that for the integrated plan that tie in directly with this outcome from the strategic plan. And so the goals that are listed below, the 4 goals below, well, 3 of them, and then the 4th one are goals that we will set as a district. Our goals from the integrated plan that we set with the Department of Education that align directly with the strategic plan. And so we went through You wanna talk about the process?
Yeah, we went through a collaborative process. This process started back in the spring, and there was part of the report that was presented at the June. Board meeting, and you got an overview of what that is. It's really posted in the entirety on the district website as well. And so we've engaged with ODE and looked at our data and engaged in the process when we looked at the data of the top performing districts as well. And so we looked at where we currently are and what we think we want to move into that direction and move towards that, where there's the highest, the top 5% of districts are performing at their rates of growth. And we use that to kind of calibrate and set some goals for ourselves with the Department of Education.
And so on this slide, I've put the goals from the previous page, just kind of in a more condensed version. So for the 4-year graduation rates, our goal for this year will be 74%. For the 5-year graduation rate, 81%. For on track to graduate, which is your 9th grade students, by the time the end of 9th grade that they're on track for graduation is 73%. And then for 3rd grade, the English language arts and state assessment, that 15% of students will meet or exceed. And to the left, you'll see the report card that shows where we were from last year. And so you can see where we were last year and then where we hope to be at the end of this year. And the percentages that are for the goals for this year are definitely minimums that we set when we went through that process with the Department of Education. And so, you know, that's definitely not the ceiling. We can exceed those, but those are at least the minimum requirements that we have and the goals that we have for the district.
And so I wanted to point out a couple of those like highlights there within the report card and the growth that was seen there at the 9th grade level, the on track to graduation. And thinking about what is working there, and we want to think about what works and how do we replicate it, and then how do we enhance it. So the systems that were put into place this last year at the 9th grade level with how do we look at data, how do we make use of it to move forward and support students. And again, the Director Chapman emphasized these are not the ceiling; these are this is the minimums. We're setting some goals that are within our realistic level for this next year.
How are we utilizing student and educator feedback in setting these goals?
The goals, the data points are really just set by looking at what the assessment results were. So what are the assessment results from the state report card? What were the top performing districts rate of growth in these areas, and setting a goal that was working us towards that. So these are just their numbers, they're the metrics. So the strategies behind them we'll get into, but these are just something like here's what our target outcome is.
So the second outcome from the strategic plan is that each student will have the opportunity to become bilingual and biliterate. And we have had students receiving the seal of biliteracy for many years in the district. And this past year, we started recognition for 5th and 8th grade students. So 5th grade is a recognition, and 8th grade is a certificate of biliteracy to celebrate students as they're on that trajectory to the seal of biliteracy. And so we hope to increase that by 10% this year, the percentage of students that are receiving those recognitions at 5th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade. And so our goal is to increase that by 10% this year. And these are some numbers that show you the numbers of students who received those recognitions last year. So at 5th grade, we had 100 students receive it last year, 8th grade, 128, and then 215 students were awarded the seal of biliteracy or multiliteracy. And then the top 6 languages are also listed that we have in our district. Students do not have to demonstrate proficiency in English to receive the seal of biliteracy or multiliteracy. It just has to be 2 languages. So it could be Mom and Spanish. Or it could be Ukrainian and Russian. And so English does not have to be one of the languages. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
And it's so important to recognize, because it's not reflected on the report card, that our students are achieving in 2 languages. And so it's not there, but we have to recognize it and celebrate it, because it's an important part of what makes Woodburn, and we need to report it and celebrate that.
And the third outcome is that each student will have a clear understanding, exploration of, and support for all post-secondary pathways. So we've set a goal around AVID for this one. So, given the school-wide focus of AVID at the middle and high school levels, 70% of AVID students will participate in a career fair, college visit, or other post-secondary exploration activity. And I don't have any specific baseline data to share on this one. I do have some of the activities that students participated in this past year. Some of those things included like a visit to Portland State, Oregon State, team building trip that they took. This is between the three different schools. University of Oregon, some students went to the Northwest Youth Career Fair in Portland, and then yeah, those are some of the schools went to the same. A few schools went to Portland State, schools went to Oregon State. So,
Sorry, and this would be only AVID students?
yes. Although when I get to the strategies of what we're doing, we do have some strategies that target all students, and so. For the specific goal that we wrote here, it's targeting AVID students.
And only AVID students can attend the activities? That's good.
No, yeah, other students can attend as well.
So non-AVID students can attend field trips.
Yeah, and the high school just added an additional college and career counselor. And so we've got more of an emphasis on giving students access to post-secondary pathway exploration through that position as well. Which is for all students, not just those positions aren't specific to AVID.
And last spring, I think we did the board heard a presentation, those. Which is again up and running at the high school and starting with their first session. I think next Thursday. And so also looking to create some of those partnerships with universities and bring university opportunities to the campus and open families.
Perfect, yeah, so I was gonna ask, what type of, partnerships are we developing with our local colleges and universities? As we have our students there, it'd be great to, also say, our students are here and have a partner.
So Quintos has been established on the own, and the high schools also currently exploring some other ones with like West Oregon University as well.
All right, and then outcome 5 is the other one that I'll be speaking to. And this is that each student will be prepared to successfully apply their learning to civic opportunities. And so the goal that we set for this one is that by the end of the year that all Woodburn students will engage in civics learning and social studies. And that each level, so like elementary, middle, and high, will identify a specific grade in which students will participate in a service project aligned to the social studies civic standards. And so we'll be working with the schools to identify what those service projects will be. And then the schools will take the lead on what those projects will look like along with the students. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, our department engaged in the process of really identifying our why, what our deeper meaning is with our work, and why we come to work, why we want to be educators, why we're working in the teaching and learning department. And so we came up with a shared why as a department, and it is because we believe quality education is a civil right. We must empower educators, foster trust, and provide resources in order to grow an equitable community, ensure justice, and enable each student's limitless potential. So while we have the strategic plan, which is our shared why as a larger district, this is the why that really drives our department. And everyone in our department was involved in creating the shared why. And so I thought that it would be really important to share it with you so that you can kind of better understand what we're doing in teaching and learning. And I identified 3 kind of large buckets that we are focusing on for this year that tie into the strategic plan goals that were just presented. And so our focus for this year, the 3 areas are supporting teachers and promising practices that center on connection and belonging and rigorous outcomes, and aligning systems of data collection, staff action, and staff reflection to ensure student outcomes. And then ensuring students have equitable access to materials, standards, and academic pathways. And I'll go into more detail about what each of those are, but I did like a stool with the 3 legs on it. So it's promising practices, aligning our systems, and then equitable access. So for the, sorry,
Just to go back to the data collection part, so earlier today in public comment, we heard feedback around data, data for every data. How are we ensuring that, one, we're collecting quality data, while at the same time not putting the burden on our educators to, compile or analyze that data? I'm sure it's a fine line. How do we do that?
so we have, if you remember last year, I shared kind of 3 different levels of data analysis. So there's the district level, which is where we look at, across the system. How are we ensuring that we're getting the outcomes, that our students deserve and that we want to have for our students to make sure that they'll be successful when they leave our system. And so we have kind of that, 30,000 foot system level data that we look at. Then at the building level, leadership is leading teachers and staff and looking at the health of their system as a building to see if there are any trends within their building that they want to focus on, or if they're, on a pathway that's ensuring that students are successful. And then at the teacher level, they're really looking at their classroom data, and the formative assessments that they're using with students, their end of unit assessments. And at the teacher level, the conversation is really about what are we doing with our instruction to make sure that students are successful. So they're deciding what materials they're going to start with their adopted materials, but from there they're going to decide if there's anything else that they need to pull in. They're going to look and see, oh, my students really need support with this particular area in my classroom, but in your classroom, they need support with a different area. And so figuring out just exactly what your students' needs are and planning for instruction to meet those needs. But at the teacher level, we really want the conversations to be around instruction. And so we're trying to, through the data team process, have some data that they're looking at, so that decisions aren't just being made on like, oh, I think this is what they need, but I have some data to show, yeah, my students are here and I want to get them over here. And so creating that plan to get them to that end goal.
And what an opportunity to get into the multi-tiered support and how we use data to make decisions and the October work session.
So thinking about those 3 buckets that I talked about on the last slide, I wanted to give you a little bit more detail about each of those because they're quite broad. So the one on the promising practices, as you know, this year we have a new professional development model where we're doing district-wide professional learning on 8 full days. So we've got several Mondays throughout the year and then a 2-day conference in November. And so we offered approximately 24 unique sessions this past Monday on our first full day professional development on promising practices, and to meet the needs of predominantly classroom teachers, classroom staff, office staff, homeschool contacts, and then some of the other department heads came up with, worked with their staff to identify what their needs were, like around maintenance or nutrition services. And so those departments took the lead on what the needs were for their specific departments. But we planned these unique sessions for approximately, it's just over 400 staff. And so we are spending a lot of time really trying to meet the needs, individual needs of student or of teachers, sorry, individual needs of our teachers and our staff, and providing all of these different pathways on the Mondays. And then also the 2-day conference that we have in November, that's right before Thanksgiving. We are bringing in presenters from outside of the district. We have a lot of presenters from inside the district who are going to be sharing their knowledge and expertise with each other. And so it'll be an opportunity for all of our staff to come together, to learn together, and to really highlight the exciting work that's happening across our district. And then we do have some outside partners who are coming in that will be sharing some expertise, and we're trying to get a variety of sessions that that staff can attend. And so it's being run just like a regular conference would be if you went to any learning conference, where people get to pick which sessions they go to. And so it'll be two days of learning as an entire district. So it's really exciting. It's something new that we're trying out this year. And so it's been an incredible amount of work, but I really hope that it will be successful and a lot of fun. So
So I have a question back to Anthony's comment about and the public comment. Is there a way that we can delegate this data collection off the load of the teachers, maybe to teacher systems or volunteers or so then they're not burdened by this additional task?
Maybe at the October work session, we get into all the different ways that the data is being collected and how it's being used to make decisions, because it sounds like maybe a little bit of lengthy conversation that we need to devote time to be able to adequately address how we are using data to make decisions.
Yeah, because their focus should be on student success and their daily itineraries, I mean, not itinerary, but their lesson plans versus data collection. So, and yes, this data collection is important, so we know the success of the students, but at the same time. It's something that maybe it can be delegated off the teacher's workload. It's just a question that, yeah, something that we should consider.
You know, look at that and share how it's being used to inform instruction. At our October work session.
Thank you, Rosie, and thank you, Anthony. For me, it looks like we need to have a pathway for this conversations to happen instead of only coming here, but I hear that there's a different level of leadership where you guys discussed all that it's going on at school level. So I hear that there's other ways to communicate and to come to a consensus of what's going on. Data collection, data, studying the data, and then putting together what's working and what's not working. So I feel like there's different levels of information and different levels of staff working together to have a better outcome. So for October, I think it will be great to see the different levels.
Right, so I mean, like Mr. Letters was saying, it's gonna be a presentation and we'll have an opportunity to work with it and ask some questions. And I think it's also important, like, trying to correct me if I'm wrong, that when we hear public comment, that we refrain from having discussion about what we hear, just because it's part of, kind of moving our meetings. But I think in the future agenda items, that's something that we can discuss at that point. Is that accurate? So, thank you.
So the new professional development model is, the new professional development model is to support that first outcome from the strategic plan to ensure that each student will demonstrate proficiency in state academic areas. So on the Mondays that we have, like this past Monday, and then we have 5 additional Mondays throughout the year, we have professional development on biliteracy, on math, on science, on social studies. We've got a variety, like I said, approximately 24 different unique sessions. And so we're trying to provide professional learning opportunities on promising practices so that our student outcomes can then increase in the state academic areas. The second one is aligning systems of data collection, staff action, and staff reflection to ensure student outcomes. And so the first bullet point on this one is tied directly to the goal around biliteracy and being bilingual and biliterate. And so we have the Dual Language Advisory Board, and the board has identified an outcome that they would like to conduct a comprehensive program evaluation of our dual language system. And so they are working to co-construct what that evaluation will look like with Education Northwest so that we can conduct this. It'll be at least a year-long evaluation process where we go through and determine what the needs are of our dual language system so that we can have improved student outcomes. We'll be getting input from staff, families, students, looking at instruction. We're also hoping to look at post-secondary outcomes for students. And so the board is in the process right now of co-constructing what that evaluation will look like. And so that will be tied to the outcome of being bilingual and biliterate. And then the training and supporting principals with revised instructional framework. So we have the Marzano focused teacher model for our instructional framework, which we've had for many years. There's just a revised version of it now. And so we've done professional development with the principals on the revised model. They've been doing professional learning in their buildings, around the model, and, Superintendent Lardios and I are doing classroom visits with principals. I'm using the model to have, deepen conversations with principals around instruction. And so that one will target a few of the different outcomes, but in particular, the one around the state academic areas, and then being bilingual and biliterates. And then collaborate with schools to strengthen and align K-12 pathways. Within our department, we are really working on looking at our K-12 pathways. This is around like CTE pathways, math pathways, our dual language pathways. So we have a variety of pathways throughout the district. And so we're really looking to articulate clearly what those pathways are for students, so that when they come into kindergarten, it's very clear where they can go as they go through our system until they are seniors. And so that one fits with the bilingual and biliterate outcome, as well as the academic areas goal. And then also the one with civic opportunities, because we really want to look at the K-12 pathways for that civic learning that happens in social studies. And so that one ties directly to this bucket as well. And then the last one is revised data cycles. And so we did what's what I'm looking for? Revise, I guess. Our data cycle process this year to have a conversation be more focused on instruction. And so we worked with principals on it at the beginning of the year, and then they've taken it back to their buildings and are trying it out in their buildings with all staff, and then taking it down to the teacher level and during their data teams time to really hone in on what are we doing instructionally and how can we support that through professional learning, so that we're able to move our student outcomes forward.
Yep. At what point will you be able to determine the positive or any effect in regards to that plan?
So we have measures throughout the year that we look at. So teachers are looking at their ongoing work that they do with students. They look at student work to see how, like, on the day-to-day, if what they're doing is hitting the mark for students. And then we have interim assessments that we give 3 times a year. And so in the winter will be the next go around. So we'll be able to see student growth from fall to winter. And then we do it again in the spring. And then the last area is ensuring students have equitable access to materials, standards, and academic pathways. So a few things that we're focusing on for this year, and this gets back at your question earlier, Chair Legosky, is around the path or the post-secondary opportunities for students. So we do have college and career readiness opportunities for all of our students. One of the ways that we're doing that this year is through Naviance. This is a platform that students can set goals in there. They map out what courses they plan to take in high school. They can explore colleges in there. They explore careers. They get to select, like, if they want to explore multiple colleges or if they want to explore multiple careers. And there is a curriculum component that goes with it, where they go through and they do some of their different lessons that they can do. And so that will happen during advisory for 6th through 12th graders. So they will all be coming up with creating a plan and profile that sets long-term goals for them. And there are like grade specific tasks that they do that are, appropriate for like a 6th grader versus a 12th grader. And so all students will participate in the plan and profile process through Naviance. And then we do have a focus on AVID this year and going school-wide with AVID. So there are specific courses that students can take that are AVID elective or AVID Excel classes. But really what the goal that we have with AVID is to go school-wide with it. So our building teams have been identifying instructional strategies and organizational practices and goals that they have as an entire building. So in every class, for example, at one of the schools, they're using a binder system. And so like every student's organizing their binder the same way so that they can easily find their assignments in there. They can keep track of what they need to do. They can easily find the the materials that they need for a specific class. So that's something that they're doing district-wide to help students hone these organizational skills so that they can be successful in school. So while there are specific classes that kids can take, we have school-wide goals so that these opportunities are open to all students. And so that ties in with our goal around the exploration of and support for post-secondary pathways. And then the last thing is collaborating with and supporting schools with social studies instruction and civic opportunities. And so we'll be working with our teachers and principals to really identify and prioritize the civic standards for social studies. We haven't gone through that process before, and so this seemed like a really good opportunity to do that. And then, as I mentioned before, identifying a service learning project that each school can engage in. And then I just wanted to finish with this profile of the students. So in March of 2022, I was here and led the school board members through a process of really identifying what characteristics and skills you wanted for our Woodburn students when they leave our system. And so these are the ideas and the hopes that you have for our students when they leave our system. And so all of the things that we're doing, we're really trying to get our students to this profile of a student when they leave our system. So we want them to be bilingual or have the opportunity to be bilingual. We want the students to leave with a growth mindset, to have soft skills, to be global citizens, to have a post-high school plan, and to learn the skills that they need to apply to the real world. And so all of these things are things that we're really trying to accomplish in our department and support schools so that they're able to provide these opportunities for students and have our students leave our system ready to take on the world and achieve all of their goals.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman, for the information that was presented tonight. There's a couple of things that you highlighted in the previous slide around opportunities for people to be involved and to be a part of the development of the strategies that you mentioned Abbott and also mentioned the dual language advisory board, alluded to the multi-tier systems of support advisory committee, leadership committee that's being formed. Those are places where the board has opportunity as well to join those committees, and we had a couple of board members who expressed interest in being part of that, and be sending out calendar invites to the board director Burkoff and the chair Benosky to join those committees.
Well, thank you for presenting the goals. I do have a question. So when it comes to follow-up, I would like to know how our students are doing, and there's a part where you show goals, and then as far as like outcomes and what it looks like, do we expect a follow-up mid-year at the end of the school year to see the outcomes of these goals?
I think that's an important part to have because we're launching the year, so we're setting these measures in place. As schools come and do their school reports, the schools will be sharing the progress that they're making towards achieving those goals. And then we have an assessment calendar that we can make public and share with the board in October, and then we can set some timelines about when does it make sense, when the data is available to come back and report the progress that we're making towards filling those gaps.
Thank you.
I just want to add that to hear that we're currently in the process of co-constructing a dual language program review. It's really exciting. Whenever the board does conclude that work, I'd be really excited to hear about the outcomes and the recommendations and how we can better support our dual language programs.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it would be great to have some of the dual language advisory board members come in and present on that.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be good. I'll be back over.
So invited director. Invited director Christy to share a lot of the work that's being organized, a couple other objectives of the strategic plan. making those connections or integrated plan. And building some connections back out to the development plans.
So good evening, Chair Legaspi, Superintendent Larios and School Board. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm writing it. So who we are a lot of people. It's about 140 to 150 people that we support out of our department. As far as staff goes, we support students on individual levels from our department. Our main job is to ensure access to education for all students. So down at the very individual student, that little kinder who's here for the first time, the senior who's graduating, our job as a student services team is to make sure they have access. So we do write, we're close to like between 1,600 and 2,000 individual plans right now, whether they're behavior plans, individual education plans, 504s, health plans. And so we're really working hard to support a lot of students. I'm going to talk about just a couple outcomes from the strategic plan. It doesn't mean that we're not working to support teaching and learning on all of the other outcomes, because again, our job is to ensure access for all students. So we want to make sure all kids have access to all of the amazing things that we've just been hearing about.
Yeah, and this work can't be done in isolation. There's no one person who does this all. It's we're really collaborating and integrating as departments and as a district leaders and all those things.
Yeah. So I'm just going to focus on a couple tonight. So one of the outcomes is that each student will have support to employ problem solving strategies and social emotional skills. We are going to measure that by the goal down below, which we're going to focus on giving explicit teaching and reteaching in school routines and expected behaviors. We're going to measure that by Swiss consequence referrals. And we're hoping to reduce major referrals by 10% from the data we had last spring to what we'll see in the spring of 23-24. You can see last year's data right there. So hopefully when we come back in the spring, you'll see a 10% reduction in that data.
But so you said measured by Swiss consequences, what are Swiss consequences?
It is a referral system that we use to we put the data into and track it for major and minor referrals, for behavior referrals.
Okay.
So
It's called Swiss. Thanks for asking. The second outcome that we're really focusing on is that with support, each student will practice ownership of their social, emotional, and educational growth. And we are hoping that if we give direct cell instruction and tiered interventions, that student DESA scores will improve by 3% in the needs category. And you can see last year's May data in May of 2023. The red indicates how many students we had in the needs category throughout the district on the DESA social emotional learning assessment. So we're hoping to reduce that by 50%. So, because we believe that a positive and nurturing sense of belonging is essential for academic success, attendance, personal development, and our Woodburn promise, we are committing to restudying PBIS this year. And PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. So, it is what PBIS is a multi-tiered system of supports for behavior and social emotional learning. And it's a system focused on making every student feel valued and connected to their school community and cared for by the adults in the system. PBIS, there's a lot of research on PBIS, and it's been proven to improve social emotional competence, academic success, and school competence. So,
Is this the PBIS? Is that for like, I don't say egregious, but heightened behavioral issues, or just in general?
yeah, that's a really good question. So PBIS is a tiered system. So we're focusing on providing systems of safety and community for all of our students at tier 1. And then we'll have interventions for students that need it at tier 2 and tier 3. So it's something we do for all students. It's really about the culture of our schools. So our action plan is we are partnering with Northwest PBIS. And we are training and supporting our principals in PBIS strategies. Our principals are working really hard. And then they're going out and they're training their staff. And at the building level, not only are they training their staff, but there are PBIS teams that will look at data together and will make decisions as a team in the school about what they need to do next in their own schools. So the administrators came together and they chose 4 specific strategies that we are going to work on K-12 and every building. Actually, we're going to work on them in preschool as well. You know, what's even cooler now that I think about it, we're working on them in preschool all the way through age 21 because we actually are implementing them in our transition program, Bridges transition program. So we're gonna, it's truly a district-wide attempt. So we're working on behavior specific praise. And what that means really is that we're not just going around and telling every kid, good job, but we're actually telling them what they're doing well, hoping that, hoping that will inspire them to continue the effort of engaging in positive behaviors. Some of our schools are really focusing on 5-to-1 positive praise to some kind of feedback or correction. We're focusing on classroom rules being clear and explicit and taught in all of our classrooms. Focusing on error correction strategies, so really learning how to correct students' errors in a positive, comforting way instead of in a negative, harsh way, and then relationship building strategies in the classroom.
So this like restorative justice?
Parts of this are restorative justice, yeah. But it isn't, this is not restorative justice. So I created or actually I didn't create this, I think Amanda Sasaki Scott created this a couple of years ago, but I brought it back to you, I made a few changes in it. It is a tiered pyramid so that you can see how PBIS and CEL work together. And if you look at what's in the green, that's what we do for all kids at tier 1. So we're explicitly teaching and reteaching expectations. We're training staff in suicide prevention. We're training, sorry, I can't really read it, but we're trying to be consistent as a team around doing the same things for kids. So kids know what's expected of them. There's nothing more stressful for a child than to know what's expected of them. So we're really working on that. We're giving kids multiple opportunities to learn and practice their behavior skills. We are also providing tier 1 CEL at every level. So at K1, 2, we're using PACS. At I think at K1 through actually K5, we're using Stanford Harmony to teach CEL. At grade 6 to 8, they're using some pieces of Character Strong, Wayfinder, Naviance, and then they're providing suicide prevention training for all students. And then at grades 9 through 12, they are having some CEL lessons in their advisory classes and using Naviance, and then again, we're going to provide suicide prevention for all students. So that's what we're doing for all students through PBIS. And then you'll see there's more targeted intervention as kids need it. So at the tier 2, there's some group interventions. And then at tier 3, that's really going into our one-on-one student interventions. So that is really our focus, and it's a lot of work all wrapped up in one nice triangle and one short presentation. So do you have any questions?
I do. I guess just like I grasp this because I know behavioral and whatnot. So say a freshman comes into high school, they've been good, everything's been, elementary. Of course, they meet some people, go the wrong way. Let's just say that, and they start acting out. Does it take the first incident to be able to put them in PBIS, or how does that work out? How do you guys do that? Is it every student that comes in? Is it a behavioral student that comes in? Behavioral issues?
So let me see if I can explain it. So PBIS is something we do for all kids.
Okay.
So every single kid that comes in the door of the high school is taught expectations, and then given the opportunity when they mess up to practice again, and they're retaught. And then there are some kids that we identify, maybe they do what you're saying, and we identify them as at risk. And so maybe they're receiving a tier 2 intervention. So they're getting a little bit more attention. They're still getting everything that every other kid gets in tier 1, right? We're still giving them all of that good cell instruction. We're building positive relationships with them. We're really focusing on that. And then maybe tier 2 doesn't work for them. They need something more. So then at tier 3, that's where we're really getting into the individual student intervention. So we might complete a functional behavior assessment and build a behavior plan. Or maybe they're meeting with a social worker or another counselor or something like that. It's more individualized at tier 3.
And so this is for all students, so I'm assuming, and like I said, I just want clarity, so I understand. Start. And so I'm assuming that there's like, okay, we're gonna call this student this time, meet with them to go over this. And then you just plan it for every student that comes through. I mean, with counselors and social workers.
Yeah, so as our buildings come and present, you're gonna hear them talking about their MTSS teams, which stands for multi-tiered systems of support. And PIS is a multi-tiered system of support for behavior and self. And so you'll hear them talking about how they're looking at data. So that Swiss data, those minor and major referrals, sometimes we'll look at that data and we'll see, hey, we've got this group of kids here that they've got quite a few minors or they have some majors. And so we're gonna swoop in and we're gonna intervene for those kids. Maybe they're gonna be in a tier 2, some kind of counseling group. Maybe they're gonna be in a check-in, check-out or mentoring. Maybe they're gonna have a mentor where we're meeting with them more planfully. So that teams in the schools will circle around data to make those decisions about how to support kids. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for the clarity.
Yeah.
That part, I just want to add on a little bit to the department that who's providing this, and everybody's kind of providing this, every adult that comes in contact with that child, how do we engage with them, how do we speak to them, what language do we use, how do we teach and reinforce those behaviors and expectations. So as part of what's happening on the trainings of those Mondays, you guys for everybody in our office staff, but everybody's needing support.
Because we really are focusing this year on care and collaboration. I'm sure you've heard Superintendent Audios talk about it, but we want our kids to feel welcome in our schools. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel like these are their schools, this is their community. And so that's really on every single adult in the system to work on that and to really kind of embrace them and build relationships with them. Mhm.
And the question, like I said, I'm just curious. So, because you know that there's going to be those students, the reality is, I know that the program has foundation and structure and whatnot, but the reality of the fact that there's students that could care less. How do you deal with those that don't want anything to do with you? Just, I don't want to say disregard them. Is there a backup plan for those that just don't want to be involved and don't want anything to do with that?
So again, if a student has risen up to that level where they really are just connecting, then that's where we start to wrap around and increase our interventions. And yes, there are some times where kids don't want to be involved with us, but we keep trying. We just keep trying. We try to put every plan in place we can to support them. You know, we'll reach out. You know, sometimes we'll consult with districts around us. We'll try to figure out whatever. We have community teams where we come together and talk about some issues that we're having and try to get supports from the community, or get ideas or look for resources for kids that aren't responding. So yeah, we just keep trying. We don't give up on them.
You know, part of PBS do is a big solution, like what's the classroom managed behavior, and what's an office managed behavior, and so there's codes of conduct that's you adhere to, and then when does that rise up to be, that gets referred to an office and the principal, and then that gets processed, and so they kind of overlap. There's that piece where it's still, I think maybe you're thinking about those instances where it is something that is a violation of code of conduct that then is handled by the principal or administrator.
Yes, we still follow our disciplinary code of conduct rules. That doesn't mean that goes away. That's when we talk about major referrals. Those are our referrals that are made through that code of conduct. Yeah.
To clarify. So when, for example, there's a fight, do students fall into this plan or a different type of plan?
Well, we follow the discipline code of conduct, so, and there's policy and process that we follow, we always follow that no matter what, but it might be that. You know, we follow that code of conduct and maybe this is a student who we determine is at risk and we intervene in another way as well. We put them into one of those groups, we get them in touch with a social worker, we refer them to counseling. All of those kinds of things kind of come into play.
There's a range of consequences that can be utilized to help correct that behavior.
And maybe you're redundant, but does that change? Does the process change if it involves the assault of a teacher?
So when we start to use words like assault, that becomes a legal process and we may be, there might be all kinds of systems and processes that come into play that really we're not even part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
Question. So I'm thinking of an example, say a student goes from a tier 1 to a tier 2 or a tier 2 to a tier 3. At what point are parents involved?
So the minute a student is referred to more intervention and more support. Well, let me back off. So if they're under 14 and they're referred to more intervention and more support, parents are involved from the beginning, right from the get-go. There are some FERPA HIPAA laws that protect students 14 and above, so parents aren't always included in that.
An example of that would be?
An example of that would be if there was a mental health concern that a student wanted to talk to somebody about, we're not, there are laws that protect them, so we don't always communicate with parents.
Since they're underage, shouldn't parents still be aware of it, even though it's a?
There's HIPAA for laws around that.
Right, it's at age 14, and 13 to counseling.
So we follow those laws.
Mm-hmm.
We always encourage students to share with their parents.
So when we say we encourage students to share with parents, do we offer a venue for that conversation, right? Maybe like.
Sometimes,
So
yeah.
production of the dialogue.
Yeah, if the students want to, yeah, absolutely.
And another question I had was around suicide prevention. And I'm thinking, post-COVID, everything mental health, I work in the higher ed space, and we've seen an emphasis on suicide prevention. Skyrocketing, I can only imagine for K-12. Can you speak to what does suicide prevention look like at the Woodburn School District and how even practices might have changed over the last few years?
Yeah, so I did share with Superintendent Latios our suicide prevention plan.
It was shared with the board in a few weeks ago, and it's also posted to the website.
Okay, it's posted on the website under Student Services Department, so you can read it if you want all the details. But what we do, we train all staff in QPR, which is question, persuade, respond yearly. We add some suicide prevention is built into our CEL curriculum and into our health curriculum as well. And then this year we will be training, and we have already done this at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They have yearly like 4 lessons that the counselors roll out to students, and this year we'll be doing that at high school as well. Yeah, and then I think they're going to be doing some work with student focus groups at the high school.
Yeah. Trying to see how I can ask it, just kind of came out. So I'm just kind of thinking of a situation in the classroom. You have a kiddo who's misbehaving. Like, what is, I guess, the protocol of the teacher's response to something like that? And at what point, what is the next step when, for example, it's interrupting or creating like an emotional unsafe space for that classroom?
Did you say yes? Could you repeat it?
Unsafe space.
Unsafe space. And so every building administrator is working to develop processes and plans for what is classroom managed behaviors and what is office managed behaviors. And they're all in different processes with that. But when that happens, really that's referred to the office and the administrator and to intervene and to decide next steps.
Okay. And is that on the school website? Is that public information that is available?
Well,
The range of consequence document, or
no.
Like, for example, as a parent, let's say I wanted to know what that classroom management process looked like, that would be across the district, right? Or would
Yeah.
that be specific?
School by school will have different processes.
Okay.
And that's part of the work that their PBIS teams do as well. Is work on this, kind of identifying that, and then some of our schools actually have created PBIS handbooks, and inside of those handbooks. I believe that there's usually some definitions of classroom versus office management behavior.
And this is something that's available now.
So some of the schools have them, I don't think all of the schools have them yet. We're doing a big reset this year, and so that's some of the work that will happen this year.
that's why it's important for us to be engaging in this work, because we want to be able to create that like guaranteed and viable experience and curriculum for all students. And as we approach instruction and academics, we want to approach trust instruction and behavior as well. Here's what all students need to get and create that system and have that really, really clearly articulated. Because right now, there's some areas of gaps that we need to address.
So this is something we're really excited to engage in this work this year, but it is a work in progress. So hopefully we'll have all of that much more articulated when we're done.
So that's what you mean by resetting, kind of working through this year, you can create that.
A little more consistency across the district.
Thank you.
I'm assuming at some point there was some research done. What was the research like? What it looked like? Was it pretty successful?
In PBIS, oh yeah, there's a very large body of national research and even international research on PBIS. I can bore you with it sometime.
Not fair that the board of CBAs has that on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Officer and Superintendent. Moving on to confirmation items. The next item on our agenda are confirmation items as presented. We have 5 items. So one, meeting minutes of June 13th, June 27th, July 11th. Two personnel, 3 acceptance of given donation, 4 surplus property disposal report, and 5 funding proposals and applications. As you look at that, and if you have any questions, this would be a time to ask.
Process question. Would it be a time to ask, Mr. Confirmation items?
You can ask, right? You have a question?
I'm just interested in learning more about the grants we were awarded. I'm very excited to hear about the 21st century community learning grant. I know that's something that's discussed multiple times and just waiting to hear about it or not, but excited to see that.
Yeah, it was one of those pieces where we didn't have confirmation, so until recently, and so again, it's last school year, the uncertainty about the funding that we received. We're excited to have been awarded the grant. This is the same amount that we received for the last 15 years. It's something that we're conscious of as we move forward, but we are very excited to have been awarded the grant. Thank you.
I move to approve the confirmation items as presented.
Second.
So all in favor of adopting the confirmation items? As presented, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries with the following vote. Item number 6, board action items. We have new business. So number 1, we have job description for the unified sports coordinator.
And I'll invite up director, Tucker, or something, description.
Board members and Director of HR. In your board packet, there is a copy of a job description for a unified sports coordinator. This is a new position that was negotiated during the last round of our license group. But as you, I'm sure it's in front of you, that this position is to organize and coordinate all aspects of the unified sports program, including the duties of the assistant coaches or volunteers. This works in, is aligned with the Special Olympics program to offer opportunities for its students. Currently, we have soccer and basketball. So coming year, we're trying to add kickball to that program. This job description was based or modified from a coaching position and then added some specific details that are needed just to support this population. Do you have any questions?
We'll read. I think this would be a protected class, correct? Sue said it's. Is it students with disabilities or can you?
So if you look under essential functions, recruit students with intellectual disabilities. So you have to put them.
Are we not doing that?
We previously had this function happening by paying through a standard contract. And so now this has become the main stipend, kind of goes into a cheap position in a way. So to be able to support the unified sports program at high school, they know it's looking, it is more stipend. So if somebody applies for it and gets hired into the position.
So, yeah, despite being a licensed contract, so where we would have other advisor type positions, academic type stipends. So this is just putting it in there. It's a lot of work. It's at a level like the top level in that group as far as the pay for it. But it's definitely an important function, and it has been paid out through other methods, but we want to support it and have it in the contract, or it is in the contract. We want to have the job description to support it.
So it's always there, we're just elevating.
We'll put it in the contract.
Putting in the contract, it was bargained for, but we really believe this is for it as well, and as a district to create this position and put some value behind it.
It's actually an official position versus how you say you try to delegate payment for it.
Yeah,
other
there's
position.
different ways you can pay it by what's extended time cards, people turn in individual hours. So this a person will apply for the pay system that were named into that. And so they're kind of the coordinator of that duty now.
I heard you correctly, this is just for the high school, or is it district wide?
It's for the high school, I believe, at this time.
We're hoping to expand it into the middle schools.
Okay. Just give it a run first and go from there.
Well, if we have this position more dedicated to it, we're hoping that we can offer it to the middle schools without having a dedicated position. We weren't really able to do that. It was too much work.
We have an idea of how many students in leadership would qualify. To.
It's not really about students,
Right.
how many qualify, but what unified sports is when students with disabilities, intellectual disabilities partner with typical peers. So it's a team made up of students with intellectual disabilities and typical peers, and they play together, and it's awesome. We will invite you guys to come. It will be the most fun event you've ever seen all year long. So we're being here.
This is- Maybe I missed it. When does this take effect? I mean, once it's approved and everything, or
It's already in the contract.
it's already in contact.
This is just kind of the backup to it. It's like when we hire folks into the position. They have a list of the functions, they know what the expectations are.
Do we have to correct the date when it says adopted at the end of the contract?
It's drafted that day, so.
Yeah, what
And
happened
adopted
adopted
and it's
the-
dropped. Okay. And it's not drafted.
Well, I will adopt the job description for unified sports coordinator as presented.
I second it.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor of adopting the job description for the unified sports coordinator, please say aye. Aye. The next item is snack materials adoption.
This director Pete. So, correct. And director Chapman back up to give an update, the board heard about the math adoption in the spring. But we're bringing forward a piece from the delay part of the adoption. The postponement, I should say.
Well, good. In your memo, I provided you with an outline of the work that the math adoption committee engaged in the past year, and then the proposed timeline for this year. And so if you have any questions about that, we'd be happy to answer those questions.
So it says, the visioning, I guess I'm just curious to know what the visioning process for that is like.
Kind of like the slide that Christy showed earlier in her presentation where the board put together their profile of a Woodburn student. That's how we start our adoption processes now. So like through that content teacher lens, like what is our vision of a mathematics student, or upcoming adoption will be science. So we'll do the same kind of visioning process. And then from there, we look at the updated state standards, because adoptions always follow updated standards, and then state guidance on what the state's vision for mathematics or science or whatever the content is. And so we go through that process. And then we also envision like what our goals are for students, how we want ourselves to show up as mathematics teachers, our students as mathematicians, and then our kind of vision as a committee body on how we want to operate and make this important selection. Because whatever we adopt is for 7 years, so it's a pretty big commitment, and it's expensive. So we want to make sure we do it really well, and we have a lot of input from teachers, and we try the materials out in classrooms and things like that. So we just spend a lot of time kind of talking through that process, and the math standards and the state's vision and our vision with the strategic plan kind of as our guideposts.
And how does the vision align with the ODE guidance or guidelines and standards?
Well, pretty closely because the standards are what we have to teach in our classroom. In terms of the vision, we had a lot of conversation about the four cornerstones of math right now, especially centering in belonging, student belonging. You heard Dina talk about that a lot. Chrissy talked about it. So it's kind of a cornerstone for all of us. And so we take some time to make those natural intersections in other areas too, so we can kind of grow off of that.
And so, because I guess my next question kind of goes along with that, says what, my question was, what is the standard for the instructional materials based on prior?
Oh, sure. So the state. So every year the state has an adoption. A content that comes up for adoption, and then, like I said, they revise the state standards, and they also pull together a committee of educators, staff across the state. And then they call for publishers to send in books or materials that align to those new standards. And then that team goes through a really rigorous process. They develop a common rubric. They go through all of these books, they score them all. And then they finally release those criteria and the scores to us. And then we have a list of like, already these have gone through the ringer. These have been like professionally analyzed, and then we do our own internal criteria after we have that narrowed down list, and then we try them out in our classrooms, and then we make a recommendation. So that's why it's such a long process and why we're asking for a postponement.
Can you talk about the engaging community review of materials? What community are you talking about?
So, yeah, that's looked different every year. During COVID, we had like Zoom sessions where people could come and hear from the publishers. We had publisher presentations. We always have them housed here at the central office, and people can come set up viewing appointments if they want to see physical books. We have a Google form survey that people can fill out after they've looked at them to give their feedback on it. This year, we're trying really hard to get into every building at either open houses, or we'll be across the district at conferences. So we'll have the physical materials there for people to be able to look at and give us verbal feedback, or like I said, the Google form. So we're just trying to make sure people have a chance to look it over and ask questions if they have them. And I think we haven't had a lot of luck with like publisher presentations. It's just too much, and parents are like, oh, okay, can I just see the books? So we're kind of going with that route this year.
I think it's an exciting route to think about, like, what are the times where there are going to be a lot of families present? And this is a struggle if we just say, hey, come look at these materials. So it would appeal to a lot of families, but if you target those spaces at times when there are a lot of families gathering and present there, we're gonna get a much greater turnout.
Yeah.
So, and I actually had the same question she asked written here. So with that being said, is there a minimum that, you presented, hey, what do you guys think? This is what we have, blah, blah, blah. And there's a response that you didn't expect. Is that heard, or is that just, sorry, this is what we got, we're gonna go with it? Does that have the power to change anything in that perspective?
I mean, it certainly could have gotten an overwhelming response that there was a huge problem with the book. I mean, that's something that we would have to figure out how to address, right? Maybe it's because if you're just thumbing through a book, right, versus people who have gone through lots of training on a specific rubric and criteria, we just want to have more conversation about it and try to address those concerns probably more deeply. So that would have to be kind of an ongoing process, I think, because it's a really thorough process, and so we'd want to give the chance for that voice, but we wouldn't just want to be like, oh, we had 5 people who said they didn't like it, and so like we can just start the whole thing over.
And I just like the context. I like.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Definitely.
And so I heard you say, is the math materials gonna be available at conferences?
Yeah. Yeah, the ones that are, so all the levels piloted 2 in the spring, and we've narrowed it down to pretty much 1 front runner that we're pretty confident in. We're just finishing some pilots right now, and those are the materials, like the ones that have kind of risen to the top that we'll have available for parents. So we'll have what we perceive to be the recommendation for parents to review.
So which schools piloted this program?
Sorry,
Which school piloted the math material?
all the schools did. We had 40-something teachers across the district piloting different materials in their classrooms. So we have a lot of teacher and student feedback on it already.
When you say continue to meet twice a month, are you talking about the 40 teachers that were trained, or you're talking about the students, or who is meeting twice a month?
Right now, we're
Twice.
meeting with kind of two groups. One is the original committee who kind of went through the initial deciding of here's all the books that the state said, and then they narrowed it down. So that's one group of people, and then all of those people plus a bunch of other teachers piloted the materials. So we're meeting with the original like governing committee because they're the decision-making committee, but they don't make those decisions without input from the pilot teachers. So they come and provide their data and their experience, and then those teachers help make the decision. So I guess the short answer is all of them.
Do parents serve on any of those committees?
We have not had parents on adoption committees before, because of the community review aspect is part of the process that's sort of built in. Those you could think about that in the future. I think it would be very helpful, especially in the visioning part.
Yeah.
Especially because like when the new math standards came out and the state has sort of the new pathways for math, there's new courses available and things like that that are exciting for people to hear about, and that's the thing we'll be talking about at open house. We have flyers about that, so there's a lot of good information and vision building that we could do together. So that might be something to consider. Science is coming up next week if anybody wants to come to that. Science adoption.
Yeah, we're starting that process next week.
So that's
So-
something that parents could participate in?
No, I was saying board members, but
Yeah.
you can think about the parent part.
Yeah, every year we have an adoption committee for something, because they're all on a 7-year cycle, so every year we're in the process of something, sometimes 2 things. Depending, you know, like this one is being carried over from last year, because the committee didn't come to a final decision and needed a little bit more time, so sometimes we have some overlap between our different material adoption processes.
Is there deadlines?
Well, the state gives you 2 years basically to make your decision. It's supposed to be implemented like this fall. Math was supposed to be implemented this fall, but most districts, especially with those COVID years and like a lot of adoptions got kind of pushed. So at least timelines are a little bit off. So, and with math having so many changes, it's a big year.
Yeah, they're like new courses and things that we're looking at, and so yeah, that's why we're here to have you take action on postponing the adoption so that they can finish that process this year, purchase the materials in the spring, provide professional development, and then implement them in the fall of 2024.
When did the pilot program begin?
Last winter, late January, I would say.
When you say new courses in math, can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, there are, I wish I had. So the math progression for like standard math was always algebra 1, geometry, and then algebra 2. That was kind of the traditional pathway for math. And now there's this thing called the 2+1 model. So you have algebra 1, and then you have a combination course that's like data reasoning and geometry. So the data reasoning piece is new, or it's kind of amplified, I guess I would say. And then instead of all students having algebra, well, you can't see it. Instead of all students for sure going into algebra 2 and then maybe going into AP or whatever, there are lots and lots of choices you can take for that 3rd year. So we're gonna be offering we are right now currently offering computer science as one of those math classes. The other ones that we're gonna be adopting for math classes are probability and statistics, and then that data reasoning. There also have the high school team has on the roadmap to do like a financial algebra class, which I think is super exciting. And then they're also trying to think about how to hook into some of those CTE pathways with actual math credits, with things like construction geometry or medical math. So the high school math team right now is building out what those maths would look like, and then we'll look for materials that will meet those needs. But for all of those, when we come back to present to you the final recommendations, we will have probably done an independent adoption for those because the state didn't necessarily go through the process for these because they're brand new courses.
So yeah, since it began in winter, it definitely needs more time, you see. And so
Well, I mean, it's been 9 months at this point.
Yeah.
Would anybody like to make a motion to?
Also, like I said, you definitely need more time.
Yes, we
So-
do, please. Yeah.
So is there a second?
Yeah, for a second, was there a motion?
There's no, I'm
There-
not sure.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
So if you wanna make the motion that you accept the recommendation. I motion to accept their request. Can you read it how is it on packet? Thank you. So I motion to postpone the adoption of K-12 math materials until recommendation has been made up until August 2024.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions?
So I'm just thinking. We discussed math curriculum a lot, is that right? Also, so the new thing that's math curriculum, in higher ed is. Offering more requisites and scaffolding, are we doing that in K-12 as well?
I guess I need to know a little bit more about what you mean.
So like,
Right.
it's sometimes in the. Adult education space, well, let's say an adult wants to go back to school and they relish back up. And they take a placement test and they get placed in math 20. But they need to pass math 111 to get an associate's degree. Scaffolding and doing co-requisites would allow an adult to maybe take a math 20 to get through it, but at the same time dual enroll in a math 60 and kind of learn at both paces. Thinking, a student gets a D in algebra 1, are they able to enroll in geometry? Does it hold them back? Do they lose opportunity to take an elective class because then now they have to redo a math class? I'm just thinking about like our pathways for our students who might not be on track to graduate freshman year and how that impacts them sophomore, junior students.
They wouldn't have to repeat a class if they got a D, that is they would get high school credit for that. They do have the opportunity to retake a course if they want for grade replacement. So if, they weren't happy with a D, they really wanted to get a higher grade, then they could retake that course. Their students do have the option of taking 2 courses at once. I mean, they do fail like algebra in 9th grade, for example. I mean, they will have to retake it or go through some sort of a credit recovery process for that, which could be through summer school. It could be through taking 2 math courses at the same time. For some of our courses, we have credit by proficiency options, and so there are some different ways, but the thing about the new math ways is that every student should have the opportunity to kind of, choose that pathway that they want. But yeah, I don't, is that answering your?
And you don't get stuck in a pathway, like there are some of your pathways, but if you were taking algebra 1 and then you could take geometry at the same time, like in your example, if you failed it, you take both those classes at the same time. And then you could hop over to computer science and then you could hop over to AP stats. It just kind of depends. After you've gotten past those first 2 levels, you can kind of mix and match. And many of those courses you could go see. You would need that algebra 1 foundation before you could access one of the 3rd year courses. And then the other thing to note is that students have got 3 years of math, but so you have like sort of that extra year to play with. You do, and then one last thing I'll say is we have many dual credit, like on the other, we have many dual credit classes. So we have a lot of Willamette Promise classes, we also have AP classes, so students are getting a lot of college credit, some of them who go through the 4 years of that. So they're better set up when they do go to school, post-secondary.
And then you mentioned students who take computer science or stats and probability to just substitute, right, math.
That could be one of their 3rd year courses, yeah.
Do we offer logic?
Not as like a standalone, I don't know if there's some of that built into some of the other And also when I come for the actual adoption recommendation, we'll bring our math specialist, so.
The independent adoptions, so are these, would these all be, I guess. Like if a student was wanting to go on to college, like these would be accepted and transferred to a college?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, yes, depending on the type of course and the partnership we have, sometimes they're like directly awarded. Like when they're Willamette Promise course, like that's pretty much directly awarded through all the schools that are in that partnership. If it's EP or something like that, then, you know, it goes through that whole college board process and then it's the transcripting for depending on which school you go to. So it just like kind of depends, but yes, we have many that are dual credit options.
Okay, so I guess if I'm taking the statistics math class and I want to apply to four-year college. Is it guaranteed that that class would be counting towards?
I can't say it would be guaranteed because it would depend on the institution you're entering.
The Oregon Department of Education has worked with the Oregon college system on the new mathways. Much like they have on some of the other newer pathways that they have for language arts. And so within Oregon, they would, you know, be very familiar with the different opportunities that students have to meet those high school requirements for entrance into college. But outside of Oregon, that's something that students really need to think about when they're selecting their courses in high school, which is where that Naviance program will be important. Because if you're interested in going to, you know, Harvard, for example, you really need to look to see what are the requirements to get into Harvard and make sure that you have a high school pathway that will get you there. But with Oregon does do a very good job of collaborating like the higher education and the K-12 system. But outside of Oregon, it's really dependent on students, you know, identifying what those requirements are for the school that they want to apply for. So, and we do still have the traditional, you know, algebra 2, pre-calc, calculus type pathway that that colleges have, you know, historically been accustomed to students coming with.
So it would be mostly the newer math classes.
Mostly what?
The newer
Yes, yeah. But a lot of those are AP classes as well, and so I mean AP is nationally accepted. So
the classes that you mentioned, the newer math classes, those are at the AP level.
Some of them are and some of them aren't, like
Okay.
instruction math, like that's one that they're in process of building out and they're doing that in concert with CTE, making sure it meets those requirements, so it's still all being worked out.
Yeah, like for that one, it's more trade versus more college preparation.
It could be.
potentially,
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know, these are the pathways for students to meet with their college career trajectories.
Yeah, and just to go back to like partnership, that's why it's so important. It's like the math pathways work that's happening at the ODE and higher at the higher ed level. There's been a huge emphasis on creating creating stronger math pathways. But like the example, like the stats example, I think a real example that we had to deal with, what we worked with was a student who got Willamette Promise credits, and I think it was either in writing like 121 or math 111, something like that. And they were a Willamette Promise student, they got the credit, and I don't remember if it was through Chevacca or through Western, and they were attending Oregon State. And Oregon State didn't have an articulation agreement either between Chevacca or between Western. And so a student took, you know, writing 121 in high school thinking they get academic credit for it. But Oregon State didn't have an established articulation agreement and only offered the student elective credit, and they had to retake the writing 121 or something like that. Because those partnerships weren't solidified. And so I think that's, you know, more reason to say to reach out to a Western, to reach out to a Chemecca or to an Oregon State, or when we work with Willamette Promise, have Willamette Promise assure us that our students credits are articulated in a way where they get major credits for the classes.
And we're lucky, I mean, the local ESDs really run the point on the Willamette Promise coordination, so it's making sure that they have all that worked out, and I know in the initial stages, there were few schools that had those partnerships, and they're growing more and more, like Christy said, most of those. The Oregon State University system is involved in that now.
All right. Yeah, are we ready for a vote? Okay. So all in favor of postponing the adoption of K-12 math materials until a recommendation has been made? Please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Moving on.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item is the 2023-2024 organizational chart.
So page 60 of your packet includes the organizational chart. And what this does is provide an opportunity to public facing document that shares with the community how we organize ourselves to complete and accomplish the goals and objectives that we heard a little bit about tonight. Starting with the school board, to their employee, the superintendent, and how we organize as a central office, to the administrators and supervisors, to be able to get the work done, to complete our goals and objectives. Today, we heard from two of the departments, from teaching and learning, and from student services, and we had an opportunity to hear a little bit about the work that they're leading. This is not an exhaustive list of the roles and responsibilities that's on there, but it provides a snapshot of the work that they're each leading. And over the course of the year, we'll have an opportunity to hear from each department about the work that they're leading, and then down to the schools and how schools are aligning their work with the overarching work of the district. I will point out that our organization chart compared to last year, we do have 4 fewer administrators on this chart than we did last year.
You got a question, I don't know if this falls under that, but when I was reviewing the packet on page 27, where it lists all the resignation terminations. So I don't know if it has to do with that, but I did have one question just for clarity regarding Principal Pugsley. Is she no longer in the grow your own position since she was bumped into vice principal, my understanding? And is there anyone that's overseeing that now, or is she still the one consulting with the admins?
Well, there are aspects of what that position was doing last year with the grow your own that have been absorbed by the Department of Human Resources. And then there are the work that makes sense to still continue to grow the pathway, the TV programs that makes sense to be able to lead from the high school level as an assistant principal. So those roles and responsibilities of the grow your own have not gone away. They've just been reallocated and how they're being accomplished.
And if we wanted if we wanted to reach out to something regarding that, and who we still contact her. Is that how I understand?
If you have any specific questions, I would just encourage you to contact me and I'll get those questions responded. No.
So you mentioned the 4 positions that got eliminated, so their responsibilities just got allocated to other departments.
Yeah, sure, I could describe one of those. One of those was the assistant superintendent position that existed last year. One of the primary roles and responsibilities of the assistant superintendent was to evaluate and supervise all the principals. That's now falling on the superintendent, along with the director. So that work didn't go away. It's now being reallocated and being taken on by other people.
And so then funds for these positions. It's not like it's money saved, it's because these positions have been shifted, that they're obviously paid positions. I guess what I'm trying to say, when we think of like 4 limited positions, it's not 4 limited positions with savings of those funds.
The assistant superintendent position had been budgeted for it, so it's not refilled. So the other ones were still different grant funded and funded in different ways. They're not being used. They're not being used. There are a few of those businesses that were not brought forward through the adoption process, the budget adoption process last year.
So the other 3.
I think I backed the specifics on which ones were and which ones were not.
Is there a motion?
I would adopt the 23-24 original chart as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We'll kind of discuss it a bit, but if any other questions or discussion, we can move forward.
I appreciate the start, it's really informative. I think my only feedback would be. I would like a quick reference, like how many FTE are in each department? I have a director for Steve. Read a number of like 100 something FTE. And I'm sure that FTE could be potentially shared at different levels. So I don't want to make it super complicated, but I would like to be able to look at technology and say 5 FTE in that department, or you know, student services, 27 FTE. It'd be helpful.
Yeah, we're looking at that for you.
Any other questions? So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And number 4 is the superintendent evaluation. The board needs to discuss if we would like to evaluate the interim superintendent Mario's this school year. And so we can have a discussion, around if we will or not. And then there is a workbook attached. So I believe in the past, when we have positions filled for the interim superintendent, if I remember correctly, we did not evaluate. But this is a discussion that the board can have, if this is something that we want to do. We're going to have a discussion. So this workbook, I think we're familiar with it to some degree. For those of us who were here last year, this is the same workbook we used to evaluate the former superintendent. There's about 7 or 8 different standards, and so I think first is maybe having a discussion around is that something that we to stay on. So we move on to discussing. Any thoughts?
Didn't we already discuss this in a previous work session? That would be a great feedback to get.
I believe we discussed it for the superintendent search, right? I think that's what you're referring to. Was that, or are you talking specifically about the interim position?
Current, Juan Larry is currently for just his monthly feedbacks, and so that was more of his feedback versus us evaluating.
Right.
Yeah.
The evaluation is usually valid when it's been a year in the position instead of current position. Unless we will evaluate future, or we evaluate July to December, or are we late? Because I know the process starts in August or September through March to evaluate.
I think if we decided to evaluate, we would just have to modify the timeline. Make it fit so to start and when to end that.
Yeah, right, like quarterly time frame. Like from August to, well, August to November. And
Right, so if we decided to say yes to an evaluation, that is something that we could request is a follow-up every 3 months. So depending when that timeline begins.
Now, this would be being new to this process. Is this something? Come March, should he decide to pursue? Is this something that would go into part of the decision making or the review? When that process comes up?
That is something that we can decide on as well.
Alright.
So if we choose to do the evaluation, we also have to consider the superintendent search timeline. Because based on Superintendent Ario's contract, there is some language around that we need to figure out. And so if we say yes, then we need to make sure that it aligns with the superintendent search.
That time, that deadline's coming up, right, the contract language.
I'm not sure. I know that Rebecca is reviewing it and she's gonna get. She'll let me know. Yeah,
March, there was like an October deadline to notify the superintendent. To notify Juan as interim if the board moving in the direction of a national search, or if we were going to do a direct appointment, but it's like a October date, wasn't there?
October triggers something that.
Yeah, that's October, November, that we have to decide as a board prior to that March date, and that might would be some contract.
yeah, I know that we will discuss it in October. So I'm assuming that it'll be before that. Deadline.
So if we say yes to the evaluation, we start March through whatever month.
It would have to
June?
end before. Evaluation would have to end before.
So
Whatever
we
that
do
may-
March through June.
So it would likely be, well, I'm sure Juan has been working on goals. And so we would consider what he's been working on. And that's what he would be presenting to us this year.
Go to March, or 6 months, do it every couple months, maybe. I think doing every couple months would give us a better perspective of, process and the progress and whatnot. A better picture instead of just doing it in 3 months. You get to see step-by-step process. How it's turned out. Put it that way.
So I guess the question is, before we talk about process and what it might look like, is if it's something that we want to.
That we're willing to do it or not.
Mhm. I don't think it needs to be as detailed as this. I think something as simple as what. We have 4 goals. As presented today, there's goals. Superintendent that goes with goals, and maybe he can share what those goals are. If we would like to, if we would like for him to add an additional goal, that's something that we can discuss. And then maybe he can do a follow-up, depending on what that timeline might look like between whenever it starts. And I don't know if it's much first.
There'll be more than just boxes that says he may be mad, he may be happy.
We can include that too.
We draw pictures too.
Or colors.
I remember doing a review in October for a previous superintendent where they came to the board in executive session, talked about their goals for the year. And then, at least as a board, we knew early on, like, hey, these are the top goals that they had in mind. That way we had the most stars that we could frame. To understand, how they led the district. Post that, I think if we don't do that. What are we measuring on and we're not. If we're not doing that work early on to say, here are your. Not for us to say, here are your goals, but for him to say, here are my goals. And us to be able to engage in that way. Second, I will also add that. when Juan served as interim. First time acting in an interim. I don't know if we had the discussion, totally my fault. I'll share this time. I don't know if we had a discussion of. Do we do it evaluation or not? I don't remember.
So I don't think we did any interim position.
We did it. So I don't know how one feels about this, but this is his second shot at being in the interim and in an executive position in this way. If it were me, I want feedback, right? Because if this body chooses to go in a different direction, October, March or something, one is a free agents, quote unquote, and a highly sought after superintendent candidate. I'm sure you want some type of professional material to have.
So if we are planning on having the evaluation, we are on time to do a check-in with Superintendent Larios in October to present his goals and then proceed to the evaluation in March to April or March to June, whatever time. So I totally agree that he might need something in paper, about professional development and professional guidance to the school district. So.
Cynthia.
I actually agree with Anthony, in regard because I myself know she was, if you're gonna look for something, you want some, something to stand with. And so, yeah, I think that would work. So that's something prepared.
Also, he states, in the same district, we also want to value. It's not his thing, but his values.
That's awesome. So if we decide to, then. We would have, we'd have to, a starting point would be to begin with the goals and see what there, so.
We are on time to do a check-in with superintendent,
Yeah.
which is in October.
Okay, so it sounds like. We are deciding to do an evaluation and then we have to decide the tool.
You don't have to decide the tool. What we can do is next, the work session. You can go into executive session and then, adopt a timeline sometime.
Just for expectations, so if we go into executive session, the next work session. We should not expect Juan to come with goals then, it's pretty short turnaround.
What do you think?
I think we should wait until the second, which is the board meeting and go to executive.
Yes, it'd be up to him.
The 20th.
Executive or not. In October, the two board meetings a month, the first board meeting in October, which is the work session. If and when we go into executive session, then. Should we expect to be presented with goals, or should we expect to adopt a timeline? With subsequent goals, like the first meeting of November, for example.
Or the second meeting.
That's right, but-
We can also do both. Adopt the timing.
But are you gonna be ready? Superintendent Larios?
I'll bring forward some draft goals, right, by October 10th. The board wants to be able to accomplish those, so we can have a conversation and, we'll give you a peek at a regular session talking about the goals. And one.
Thank you.
We can do the same thing in the second meeting in October. We don't have to do it at the first meeting. Work session.
It's just wouldn't be a work session.
Any other thoughts? What it sounds like a next. Board meeting, we'll adopt the timeline and receive a presentation on those.
For that, for the further part of that meeting, and we also discussed the exactly contract with them for their contract language, because I know there's specific for that language, and I want to make sure that we.
Yeah, so we did reach out to Rebecca and we are waiting for her to give us feedback. And so she should be responding for our next meeting. So we'll have that information. Any other discussion? All right, the next item here is the 4 goals.
Is the final draft from last discussion. I will say that there was a lot of, I took a lot of notes about kind of ideas that you all had. I didn't include them in your in this document, but I can send those out if you would like. Just for purposes of having just a clean copy. I didn't include the idea that you guys all had.
Is there a motion to adopt the 2023-2024 organizational chart? As presented? Oh, sorry.
I move the motion to adopt the 2023-2024 board goals as presented.
Thank you. I second it. Right, all in favor?
I
Okay. Thank you. Future agenda items. So I know one that came up was assessment and testing, and so we will have a presentation on that at our next board meeting. Thank you.
I'm out of the country this weekend. And I won't be back for the work session on October 10th. I can try to connect.
We did not have a discussion during our goal, but all I was gonna mention was, in our first goal, board members will have a working understanding of district community outreach operation. At some point this year, we ready to have a presentation on the district's community outreach operations. What does it look like? Who does the word? The presentation on community outreach operations for the school district.
Can be a future agenda.
Been a topic that anybody needs some good, board, updates that have been provided for the community outreach opportunity center. That have been scheduled, and I'll be reaching out to one, just invite you to join us some of those.
Any other items or other topics that we want to add? Okay. And board calendar, so as you can see, good. There is an OSBA regional meeting next week. If you're interested in attending, you can let Jenny know when she can RSVP. And that is
That will have an ESP and film.
in October 10th and October 24th are the next school board meetings.
That's, they usually do that on Thursdays, right?
Yes.
So, so we'll board calendar. I'll also just let folks know it falls in between board meetings, but I will also be out of the country. But it's the last week of October, first week of November. We don't,
Is that correct?
in between our board meetings, I won't miss a board meeting.
Oh,
Just,
I'm also gone, but I'm coming back.
Okay, I'll be back then.
You're leaving?
I'm coming back and then I'm leaving again. Yeah.
So if we're gonna be working on this superintendent evaluation summary and outline, then, and if you're not gonna be available, then
I'm not here October 10th, and then I'm gonna try to connect that day, that night for the goals. I'm often having network system services and when I'm out of the country, but not always. I'm trying my best to be.
I know we used to do like, it was like a calling number. And I feel like that's even stronger.
Let's
Signals,
just listen in.
what's the name of the talk, it was that like. Remember that, it's like a black.
The triangle.
The triangle thing, and it was just a calling number. And that was like a stronger signal. Yeah, let's just figure it out.
Maybe Jenny never met those.
I did, now, the way this is set up with, webinars, we have to kind of join as a panelist. I'll have to check if a panelist can join via phone. I'm not sure. Since we're kind of talking about dates on Friday, upcoming Friday. If you're interested in being in the parade, please let me know.
this Friday.
Friday.
4 o'clock.
Let me know as soon as you can, so I can try to coordinate something.
Seems like I'm missing all the fun stuff. Leaving Friday morning.
Who are we playing?
Dallas.
Oh, I think I asked that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Well, hopefully you mentioned the soccer score was 28-0. Soccer score or football score? Hopefully that's our.
Well, 28-0 is a combination of 3 games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's our.
What?
Yeah.
I think we're all set for today. So thank you everyone for joining us. We now adjourn the meeting. Thank you.